Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, Managing Director of the Sales Doctor. And just for those of you who are tuning in, make sure that you subscribe and follow on the YouTube channel and that you follow here on Spotify. I'm joined today by Jeanine Batchelor. Now, let me do a bit of an introduction because it's pretty impressive, and I think that you'll see where we're going to go with Jeanine as I go through the introduction. So Jeanine has worked in the construction industry all her life, starting with working for CBUS Superannuation Fund, where she became one of the youngest client advisors at the age of 22. So already you're starting to hear that Jeanine is something special. She worked alongside her father in his very successful commercial electricians company. She now works alongside her husband, Jason, and their first venture together was growing an award-winning boutique home construction business. But more recently and currently, Jeanine and Jason have partnered with Rob Kruber and Scott Jackman from Summertime Pools for the Murray River region. And they've been working hard building their business in that region since November 2022. In this interview, we're going to hear about Jeanine's unique approach to the way that she engages her customers and the way that she's built a business based on all of the things that she's gleaned from her father and the way that he ran his business right through to personal experience, really focusing in on the building and construction sector. So welcome, Jeanine.
Thanks, Ingrid. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I feel very privileged to be sitting talking with you today.
Well, I'm the one that's feeling privileged because I absolutely love working with you, as you know, and
thank you.
I think we're friends now, which is so lovely. But it's really lovely. So I kind of went in a little bit into your story, but it's a very interesting one because you come from a family business background. Can you walk us through the journey that you took watching your father in his business and some of the lessons that you learnt there and how you implement those today?
Yeah, I must say I've been pretty fortunate. I've had an amazing role model in my dad. If you asked him, he probably doesn't see it that way. But for me growing up, it's always been a staple in my family life that our family, had their own business, as in mum and dad. Mum and dad worked very closely together. In the early years of dad, he was an electrician. He had a skill set that was quite different to others within the industry. And with that skill set and just his tenacity as a person, he was able to be very successful with his commercial electrical business. So I remember as a kid, we would be running around the back factory. I've got a bit of a scar under my eye as testament to smashing into one of the workbenches. So we were always around it. To Saturdays going in with Dad, and my sister and I would be in the different offices, putting phone calls through to each other and just playing offices. So, and watching Dad love what he was doing. He was extremely passionate, very organised, very intelligent, very caring of his employees. Maybe if you ask them, they didn't get to see that side of Dad. And I probably didn't get to see that side of Dad either until I had an amazing opportunity to go and work within the business. I looked after the service department, and I got to see Dad in a different light. So I knew him as Dad, but I also knew him as the role model, the boss with empathy that all his employees really did look up to them. He was hard, but he was fair, and he wore that honour like a badge of honour that his business supported so many families, and he took that very seriously. So I think that for me was when the switch turned a little, and I got to see Dad as I always seen him behind the scenes at home, but I really saw him in his element. And I think that really helped me grow as a person, but also knowing what I wanted to do moving forward.
That's an incredible upbringing. And I love the fact that your sister and you were, sort of playing officers and, in the service department, pretending before you were actually in the service department. Can I ask you, how you talked about, you got to sort of see your father the way that other people got to see him, as that person who was really passionate about his people, who really took it seriously that he was responsible for so many people's livelihoods, and he took that as something that he was very proud of. But he was careful with all of that, and he wanted to be successful. It was a driver for him. When you started working in the business, were there any surprises for you about what you got to see? Were there sides to your dad that, that were surprising to you, that you wouldn't have been able to see just as his daughter visiting the factory every weekend or after school?
Oh, there was. I should have known. My dad was a bit of a taskmaster at home. I never had a sick day off school. I'd really need to be on my sick bed in order to take time off school. And that was no different when I started working with Dad. I think being his daughter, I was put on maybe from his point of view, I needed to make sure that I performed well, and that I wasn't there because I was Dad's daughter. And in actual fact, I think that gave me even more drive to show and prove my worth. And I did. I got to see Dad, when they'd hire apprentices, the apprentice wouldn't come in on his own. Mum and Dad would come in with the apprentice, and he would interview the whole family and really nurture that they were coming on board working, and it was a long-term future for them. So he really took on board his role to, create an environment that was, there for all employees, but there for, the long-term future, especially these young apprentices. And so I would do a lot of work with them as well, which I found, quite challenging at times. And it really put them in the start of their path of being independent and also giving comfort to the family, knowing that they were in the right hands. So I always knew that about my dad, and I always knew how special he was with people. He's a real people person. But then I also learnt that someone needs to lead. Someone needs to take that emotional hat off sometimes, and the hard decisions need to be made. And I saw how Dad navigated that. And I always remember when he did retire, and being able to go to his retirement dinner, there was just real genuine excitement for Dad's future retiring, but also sadness that he wouldn't be in the office every day. And I know I wouldn't have had that same experience like my sister, who never got to work with Dad, and I did. That, it was just a side of my dad that just really resonated with me. We're more alike than what either of us like to admit. But I'm proud of that. I'm so proud of my dad, and I'm proud that I get to have the qualities that I admire in my dad. I think I have those in my everyday approach to life as well.
I think you sound so much like your father, and I just wish that I could meet him, because he does sound incredibly special. And Yeah, one of the things I just wanted to just bring to the listeners' attention is just a turn of phrase that you've got that I think also says a lot about your philosophy towards everything that you do. You use the phrase, I get to, I got to work with Dad, I get to do this, I get to do that, rather than I have to, or, that, and that to me, even though that's just a turn of phrase, it says so much about my experience of you as well, which is all about gratitude and a humility about the gift that you've been given, and you know how precious it is to be given these opportunities and to really run with them. So I just want to highlight that there, because before we even move on to talking about customers and your whole approach to that, there are many children who might have an opportunity to work in their families' businesses, and not everyone takes that opportunity the way that you have. Like you took, from what I'm listening to, you took that as an opportunity to kind of almost go to school, go to business school. So you went in there and you almost absorbed all of this richness that your father imbued in the way that he was with his employees. And you talk so beautifully there about the apprentice. Like, that's going to stay in my mind, interviewing the whole family and allowing them to see that their child was going to be in, very caring hands for, the journey of their career. Which I just think that is, that number one should be something that we think about. But you also said that, you wanted to prove, that you weren't just there because you were your father's daughter. Tell me about expectation. Was it your father's expectation of you? You talk about sick days and not taking sick days and so forth, and I love that. I know a lot of people go, oh, you should take a sick day if you're sick, but I'm talking about work ethic here. And Janine, you talk about, the expectations. I wonder if they're from your father or those that you had of yourself. Looking back, where do you sort of see the balance being? Was it more your dad having expectations of you, or was it you having expectations of yourself?
I think it balances quite evenly, to be honest. Even at my age, I'm just turned 51, and having my dad's opinion on things, I always still to this day will hash out things with Dad, and his opinion does matter to me. And so does the respect that I get from Dad. So yeah, I think that formed, that he invited me to come and work with him and with the other members of the team. And I didn't want him to ever regret that decision or make that decision hard for him. I'd always grown up with Dad in business, so people did know me as Frank's daughter. Even to this day, I'll be off somewhere and someone will, discuss my dad. He is well known in the industry. So I always knew that was going to be a little bit of a pressure that I needed to carry. I wouldn't say a burden, but just a little pressure. And then myself, I think I'm a little bit of an overachiever and I do like business. I like to be involved, and not just business, with anything that I do. I like to nut out the ins and outs. I need to find the reason why I'm doing things. And with that puts some pressure on myself that I like to be successful. And I don't mean success in the terms of financially or successfully on how large you can grow a business. I like to challenge myself. And to me, that's success in itself when I feel that I'm, I'm mastering a particular skill that maybe I didn't know I had before. So I think it would be even footed with, wanting to represent my dad, but wanting to represent myself and forge my own path in life as well. So Yeah, I'm super privileged and not just working with Dad. Dad had some amazing people that worked alongside him, and I gained so much knowledge from them also.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, that's what happens, isn't it? When somebody's like that, and you talk about him being a people person, I have no doubt that he would have attracted some really great talent around him that could have mentored you as well, and that you chose to take lessons from. Yeah, there was so much in what you just said there. I'm sure we'll pull out some quotes from that. But I want to move now to customers, because you and Jason have already built, over the course of 20 years, a successful boutique home building business. So you know how to do that. And now you've taken on this challenge. Now, you're based in the Murray River region, which means that, it's quote unquote, a regional business. Now, I think I mentioned that because I think that there's a particular approach to really building, a customer base there. In my philosophy, I talk about loving our customers, and in my observation of you, I think you epitomise what loving a customer actually means. It also makes you incredibly successful. You talk about, wanting to be successful and challenging yourself to learn new skills and the ins and outs and so forth. You also say to me, though, you don't see yourself as a salesperson, and yet you're possibly one of the most successful salespeople currently at Summertime, even though it's partly your business, but you're consistently achieving targets. What would you say is your approach to engaging customers?
I think from my building world, I've dealt with all different types of customers. And when I look back at the years of working, and to be honest, I never expected to find myself working side by side with Jason on our building company. It wasn't what I expected that we would be doing. And I'll be honest, we work really well together. We're different in the way that we work, and it just meshes well. It works well. I've dealt with customers that have gone through such hardship that were really at we rebuilt a lot of homes after the Black Saturday fires, and I felt completely honoured. And some of these customers, we weren't the first choice. They had other builders that they were going to build with, and it had taken some time. So by the time they came to us, they were very broken. And I always remember those years were very emotional. But at the same time, I felt that I was part of the rebuild, part of them being able to move forward and move on with life. And so I think that's always stuck with me as well. And that's why I think I, come into Summertime Pools and working within the sales portion of the business as well. I never really saw myself as a salesperson, because what I do, I didn't consider as sales. And when I look back, maybe with our building company, I probably was doing a little bit of sales, because I was the first contact. All our work was all through word of mouth. We didn't really do much advertising. All our business was gained by putting our hearts on the line. Our company name was our surname, so we lived and worked and really celebrated what we did as builders. So I think for me, I can only transfer what I've done from our building lives to what we do at Summertime Pools. I think it's very similar. A little different. People need a roof over their heads, so it isn't so much of a luxury item, whereas a pool is. But I get, the way I see it is, I get to be along the journey with them. How exciting that they get to provide their family, you know, years of working, I'm sure, to save for this opportunity that they've, you know, had years and years to try to, you know, create. And I get to work alongside of them and get to help them with creating this amazing space for their family. So I feel quite privileged to be able to be welcomed into someone's home. You know, that's their private sanctuary. And I know, you know, from dealing with my customers that had gone through hardship with the fires, you know, it's a big thing to have someone into your home. And I think you need to be respectful that you are in their home and that we're all busy. So for them to want to meet with you, I'm there to facilitate a dream that they've probably had for years, facilitate some really good family time and some time with friends and neighbours, and to give them as much support as they need. So for me, yeah, I am selling, you know, a lifestyle and a product, but I get so much more out of that by feeling that, yeah, I'm not saying that being a salesperson is hard. I consider myself a salesperson until probably we started working together, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I've been selling longer than I realised, but I still don't see myself that way.
It's funny, isn't it, Janine? Because I think that the best salespeople often describe themselves as non-salespeople, or I'm only helping people. I love helping people. You know, I've rarely heard people talk about selling as a privilege. I believe that it is too. I think that that's where we're aligned. And the other thing that I would like to sort of highlight here is, again, that, you know, that phrase, you know, I get to work alongside them, I get to help their dreams come true. But you also said something before that I want to come back to, and you said about you and Jason having your hearts on the line. Now, I have never heard that described by business people before. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm a bit of an emotional driven person. I am driven on emotions, and our heart is on the line. You know, it's probably not the healthiest at times. You know, I do take things personally, and I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And that's, I suppose, where I come to it, in that our hearts are on the line, because we do, you know, I know with our building life, I would be the last person to walk out the door before we were ready to hand over the home. I'd have a fresh pair of socks on, so I would clean the homes myself and present them in a way that it just would bring joy to the moment they opened the door and they got to see what their lives, their next lot, you know, I suppose, stage in life, you know, whether it was an older couple and it was their new start, their, you know, children had left home, or a young family that, you know, that was their family home. Again, I felt privileged to be the last person to walk out and knowing that we had put everything into that home. And that's what it was. It wasn't a house, it was a home. And that's putting our heart on the line. And that was super important to me, to a point where it sort of would get to the end of building many houses. And I wasn't particularly fast with cleaning them, I must say. I'd give myself a couple of weeks to do them. But that was my gift to our client at the end of the day as well, that so much love had gone into the building of that home. So, and again, I think that's why I can't be something that we're not, or I can't be something that I'm not. If I don't believe in something, then I'm in trouble. So I do believe in what we do, and I do believe in having that heart on the line, that, you know, we're there for the long haul. We're not there for the quick and the short and off we go, that we build relationships, and that's very important to me, is building that relationship and doing it honestly from the heart.
Wow. That's, I mean, if I could box what you've just shared with us and said to salespeople, this is the recipe for success, is to put your heart on the line in whatever way that shows up for them in their role. In your case, you were talking about one of the gifts that you could give your customers when they'd bought a house is cleaning their home so thoroughly. You know, it wasn't a tick and flick exercise for you. It was a gift that you gave them so that it brought them joy when they walked into that home. You know, it was you were infusing that house with your love, you know, that you'd put into that home so that then when you were handing it over to them, that's the sense that they would get. You talk about a really strong sense of belief in everything that you do, and that belief would absolutely come across in every conversation that you're having with your customers. So, yeah, you really are a very, very special person in the way that you approach that relationship. It's no wonder you're so successful. Janine, you have quite a unique business model, and I commented. I don't know if I explored this enough when I was interviewing Rob, but I love the way that he is doing business. I think Rob's quite a genius actually when it comes to business. And you and Jason have a unique business model in that you've both partnered with Summertime Pools in a joint venture. Looking at it as a business person, looking at that model, what difference do you think arrangements like this make to the level of ownership that maybe others could have towards the results that they drive and how they see the business that they run?
Actually, you touched on that a little while ago, which really resonated with me. And when I explain, I'm sure the penny will drop. You'll understand. It took a bit of convincing, to be honest, from Jason's side to come on board. It had been a couple of years in the making. Jace and I had worked so strongly together for so long that we just knew each other, how we work. So, and it just worked for us. And I suppose coming out of COVID and, you know, the world changing and changing how we saw ourselves as builders, the timing was right. And you've brought up in meetings that we've had or training sessions that we've had how hard it is for mum and dad businesses in the marketplace and, you know, needing to be seen and heard. And that was a bit of a different feeling I had with Jason and I working together, because I celebrated that fact that we were a mum and dad business and that we were very hands-on with every aspect, because it was just myself and Jason. We didn't have employees. We had very amazing quality subcontractors that were there from the very start to the very end. It was like saying goodbye to a family. And it took me a bit of convincing, because I feel most comfortable when I speak on my own behalf. And everything that I do comes from me and comes from Jason. And the first meeting that we had, and Jason was like, come on, let's meet and just see where that takes us. And that meeting I walked away from with a really nervous excitement of possibly being able to find a fit that I felt could be there, you know, that they might have been the piece of the puzzle that I didn't realise was missing. It was a great meeting. I got to really, without knowing Scott and Rob that well, which is unlike me, I'm very organised and I like to, you know, make sure that I understand what I'm about to explore. I just let it be organic. I just let it develop as we went along. And it was one of the best decisions that Jason and I had ever made. I see Rob, he reminds me so much of my dad. I think that's possibly why I take so much from Rob. And Scott is just a mastermind. They're both so intelligent in their own right, but so warm and giving of their time from the other side of the coin. And I learn so much from them. I learn so much from you, Ingrid. I learn so much from people, some good, positive people around me. And that has really assisted me in growing as a person. You know, as much as I'm a bit of a fighter. You know, I like to really push my boundaries, and I love to work. So to have something I could get my teeth into and really work hard at and, you know, develop, and that's where Rob and Scott have definitely given us some time to really develop this region as our own. The trust that they've put into, you know, allowing us to explore how we do things has been amazing, you know, and knowing that we have partners that can help with the load, you know, and I mean the emotional load, and, you know, just knowing that you have others that you can chat to has been huge for Jason and I. And just allowing me to develop and grow and hone my skills, I'm so grateful for. And introducing me to people like yourself, Ingrid, that's really made me sit back and think. You know, some of the things maybe I took for granted, or I didn't quite understand why I was doing things, now make sense. I didn't know that I was doing things a certain way. They just came naturally to me. And now I understand what an impact they have in certain instances. So being in a joint venture, I still believe in the mum and dad businesses, though it just makes perfect sense to me. It just gives you responsibility. It gives you like-minded people to be around and to bounce things off. It makes you accountable for what you're doing. You know, when I'm selling or I'm meeting potential clients, I'm not just looking at it from a sales perspective. I'm looking at it from a business perspective. And I just don't mean that as in a business perspective that we need to be financially viable. I owe it to our clients. They deserve for us to be financially successful, because then we're around for the years to come whenever they need us. And if we're not here to be a service to them, then again, we're doing something wrong. So I think, yeah, being involved in a joint venture with such amazing partners, it really does work. And I am looking at it from new eyes, from fresh eyes, and being that sponge I always know I am, but even more so, really thirsty for that knowledge. And yeah, I'm lucky that I've got some great mentors to develop and to take on, you know, that knowledge. And also, I always say it to my daughter, she's can need a little bit of a helping hand, as we all do from time to time. And sometimes when I feel a little nervous or a little anxious and I think possibly I'm not the right fit for something, or maybe I'm, not providing that confidence I need, I